What are the things that are most important for you to pay attention to if you want to be creative, progressive, innovative, successful in an environment that's changing this fast, right? And the term I use to talk about this is Generation Flux. And Generation Flux refers to two things. It refers to an era, the era we're living in now, a time of rapid, high-velocity change that shows little signs of slowing down. And it also refers to a group of people, right? To the kinds of people who are best positioned to thrive in this kind of environment of change. And when I talk about Generation Flux as a group of people, this generation is not defined by chronological age, okay? You can be young or old and be Gen Flux, right? The key attribute is your mindset, right? It's a willingness and ability to adapt to all of these changes going on around us, right? All of these technological changes at core are human impulses and the way we respond to these changes. This is the primary driver of what success is going to mean in our near-term future. We live in a mobile, social, global, interconnected world where the old rules of business really don't apply anymore. And if we're honest with ourselves, we recognize that we have no idea what the new rules are, right? That there are no new rules out there. And we are grappling in the dark in so many ways. A CEO I talked to recently said that all of the jobs she's hiring for today are what she calls FIO jobs. I asked her, I said, well, FIO, what does that stand for? She said, it stands for figure it out, right? They're all figure it out jobs. You know, she interviews people and they say, well, I haven't done that before. I wasn't trained for that. She says, yeah, none of us have, right? We are all figuring it out as we go along. That is a central aspect of being part of this age of change that we're living through. They continually redefine themselves. In the process of that, they're pushing each other and pushing all of the rest of us, right? And there's a parallel group to this in China called BatX, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Xiaomi. They're doing the same kind of thing in China, and together these two sort of cadres are driving change in a completely different kind of way and forcing every business in all industries to operate at a higher cadence of change. The millennial approach to the world can get a little overwrought, the obsession with millennials, right? But we ignore it at our own peril, right? Digital natives do look at the world in a different way, and all businesses have to constantly be thinking about the next generation. We did a story at Fast Company a little while ago about Snapchat. And the lead of the story was about a Major League Baseball game where it was a nationally broadcast, and the cameras found this group of kids who had really good seats up front, right? And they weren't watching the game. They were just playing on their phones, right? And the announcers start teasing the kids. You know, look at these kids, they have, you know, they shouldn't be there, and they're wasting their time, and they're on their phones instead of watching this fabulous game. And our point was that these announcers completely missed the point, right? That what those kids were doing on their phone is the biggest threat to those announcers' jobs, right? To the future of Major League Baseball, to the way that entertainment and media has been engaged with for decades, right? That this is the future, and we cannot ignore how next generation, how kids, those youngsters, those pesky youngsters, right, are engaging with new things. And this is this idea, again, that youth will be served whether we want to acknowledge it or not. It's coming. And it's better for us if we get in front of it and we learn from it. Whatever age you're at, we're less engaged in our work than we used to be. But at those places where people are more engaged in their work, performance is better. Financial performance is better. And that higher engagement and that higher performance is not correlated with paying people more money, okay? It's not the financial return, the financial incentive that drives that engagement. Instead, it's being part of an organization that you feel is doing something meaningful in the world, right? That has some mission and purpose that is higher than simply just making money. Not that there's anything wrong with making money, right? But this data is consistent, that what drives people's engagement is not simply money, but having a purpose and a mission. But the more we get used to the reality of this chaotic, constantly moving world, the better chance we have of improving our adaptability to it. I showed that image early on of Tim Cook. at Apple Park. And when I was there with Tim, I asked him a bunch of questions, but one of them in particular stuck with me. I asked him about how he manages the pressures of the long term when he's getting pushed by Wall Street all the time for quarterly results. And he said, listen, I always focus on the long term. He says, I have to focus on the long term. He said, remember that our business is predicated on chips, on silicon, right? And I have to make decisions 3 and 4 years out about chips. And so I have to stay focused on the long term. And after I left, I reflected on this. I said, here is a guy who is the CEO of the most valuable company in the world, right? And his definition of long term is 3 years, right? This is a sea change from where we've been in the past. And something we all have to be mindful of. Again, this is the reality, right? And you can fight that reality and get washed away by the waves, or you can embrace that reality and it unlocks so many opportunities to be that agent of change inside, right? To make that change happen, whether it's in your organization, it's for you, it's helping the industry. All right, I'm going to finish with, I'm just about out of time, with one last quote. It's from 150 years ago from a guy named Charles Darwin. It goes like this: it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's not the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And if there's any single message I can leave you with, it's that. Thanks very much for having me here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.